Am I the Oshkul if I cut ties with my parents after they threatened to walk out of my wedding? I'm at a crossroads and feeling incredibly hurt right now, so I thought I'd reach out to the Reddit community to get some perspective. Here's the situation. My parents threatened to walk out of my wedding the day before it was supposed to happen, all because of a disagreement over food. This might sound trivial on the surface, but there's a lot more to it, and I'm really struggling with what to do next. Let me start by saying that my wife, Rosie, is the most beautiful sunshine of a person you could ever meet. She's kind, thoughtful, and has a heart of gold. One of the things that attracted me to her was her commitment to living a compassionate life, and part of that includes being a vegetarian. After falling in love with her, I decided to cut back on meat myself, not because she ever forced me to, but because I wanted to support her lifestyle and be healthier myself. It was my choice, and it felt like the right thing to do. We were planning a destination wedding, and Rosie, her parents, and I did all the planning together. My parents, on the other hand, didn't want to be involved at all. They've never liked Rosie, and to this day, I don't know why. They didn't even want to meet her before we got engaged, and they've been rude and dismissive of her ever since. My in-laws, on the other hand, have gone out of their way to try and build a relationship with my parents. But every attempt was met with coldness or outright hostility. To give you an idea of how much my parents dislike Rosie, they didn't invite a single person from their side to our wedding. We had a modest guest list of about 150 people, but only 2 of them were from my side. My parents. My sister, who lives in Australia, couldn't come because of some visa issues, so it was just my mom and dad. It's strange to say the least, but I've come to accept that I'm not the golden child in the family. My sister has always been their favorite, and they've made that abundantly clear over the years. They even set aside $50,000 for her future. But when it came to my wedding, they gave Rosie and me $50 as a wedding gift, and even that seemed to pain them. Anyway, back to the wedding drama. My parents showed up the day before the wedding, and they took me out to lunch. We hadn't spent much time together in the days leading up to the wedding, so I thought maybe they wanted to have a nice moment with me before the big day. But things went south pretty quickly. They ordered chicken lasagna at the restaurant, and when they asked if I wanted to share it with them, I politely declined. I told them I wouldn't be eating it because I've cut back on meat, and especially since Rosie and I were getting married the next day, and I wanted to support her lifestyle. That's when all hell broke loose. My mom started cussing out Rosie, calling her all sorts of horrible names. She blamed Rosie for changing me, for brainwashing me into giving up meat, and accused her of trying to control my life. My dad was furious too, saying that Rosie was turning me into someone I wasn't, and that I was being disrespectful by not eating the lasagna with them. I tried to explain that it wasn't about disrespecting them or anyone else. It was just a personal choice I'd made, and it wasn't even that big of a deal. But they wouldn't listen. They were so wrapped up in their anger that they didn't even want to hear me out. They didn't care that I was about to marry the love of my life, or that this was supposed to be one of the happiest times of my life. All they cared about was the fact that I wouldn't eat meat with them. To make matters worse, they then turned their anger toward my in-laws. They called them up and berated them for not including non-vegetarian options in the wedding menu. My in-laws are predominantly vegetarian, and when we were planning the wedding, we all agreed that the menu would reflect that, especially since the majority of the guests were vegetarian as well. My parents didn't express any interest in the wedding plans, so they didn't voice any concerns about the menu until the last minute. But suddenly, it was a huge issue for them. They told my in-laws that they were disrespected by not having non-veg options, and then they dropped the bombshell. They threatened to take a flight back home and not attend the wedding at all. My mother-in-law, who is the sweetest person you could ever meet, was in tears. She had tried so hard to make my parents feel welcome and included, and this was how they repaid her. Rosie was also in tears, heartbroken that her wedding was being overshadowed by this unnecessary drama. I was furious. I couldn't believe that my parents would do something like this, that they would ruin such an important day over something so petty. I begged them to stay, to not do this to me or Rosie, but it felt like I was talking to a brick wall. They were adamant that they had been disrespected and that they weren't going to tolerate it. After a lot of pleading and begging on my part, they finally agreed to stay. The damage was done. The joy of the wedding was tainted by their behavior, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they were only there because I had to grovel for their present. It hurt more than I can put into words. This wasn't how I imagined my wedding to be. It was supposed to be a celebration of love, not a battlefield where I had to fight for my parents to be there. Even after all that, my parents didn't make an effort to enjoy the wedding. They stayed to themselves, barely spoke to anyone, and when it came time to give Rosie and me our wedding gift, they handed us an envelope with $50 in it. I wasn't expecting a lot from them, but the way they acted, like even that small amount was too much, made me feel like I was worth nothing to them. Now that the wedding is over, I'm left feeling completely disillusioned. I've always known that I wasn't the golden child, that my sister was the one they favored, but this was something else. It wasn't just about playing favorites anymore. It was about them not caring about my happiness, about the life I'm trying to build with Rosie. It's clear that they don't approve of my marriage, and frankly, I'm tired of trying to win their approval. I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter. I'm seriously considering cutting ties with them. I know they're my parents, and I'll always love them in some way, but I can't keep subjecting myself and Rosie to their toxic behavior. It hurts too much. I don't want to live my life feeling like I'm always going to be second best, like nothing I do will ever be good enough for them. Rosie and I deserve to be happy, and if that means distancing ourselves from my parents, then maybe that's what I need to do. I know they're my parents, and walking away from them feels like a huge, scary step. But at the same time, I don't know how much more of their negativity I can take. I'm so hurt by how they've treated Rosie and me, and I'm not sure if I can move past it. So am I the asshole if I cut ties with my parents after they threatened to not attend my wedding? Any advice or suggestions would be greatly appreciated. I'm really lost right now, and I don't know what the right thing to do is. Thank you for listening to my story.